Thank you, and I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing this amendment to the bill. And this bill, there's been some allegations that it would stop an adult from buying one of these types of weapons for his child to use on their ranch or anything, but there are some exemptions in this bill. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, I think the exemptions, which you worked on painstakingly to make this as narrow as possible, because we know there's litigation in this arena, and a lot of it's going to be based on the narrowness of the legislation itself. And so the exceptions include, and particularly the one that you're talking about, if they're in the presence of a lawful transfer or on private property or while hunting or at a range or if they're shooting sport, all those activities are not gathered up in the provisions of this amendment.
And so there's an exemption for peace officers, correct?
There's also an exemption for peace officers, and in fact, when there were concerns raised to your office about folks in the military, because you have folks in the military that are under 21, and your response was, and I think rightfully so, to exclude them out of the bill. And they're not in this amendment either.
Folks that are honorably discharged from the United States Armed Forces.
It includes them as well, yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And if you've already said this, I apologize. I couldn't tell what I couldn't hear you. And then there's an exemption for the transfer of the semi-automatic rifle to a person to carry while in the presence of the transferor, while on the property owned or leased by the transferor, on the premises of a sports shooting range, for the purpose of lawful hunting or sporting, at a lawful competition and using the use of firearm. So that covers the instance where someone wanted their 16-year-old, for example, 15-year-old, to have one of these weapons with them when they were driving around on their ranch or something like that, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir. It covers all of those instances because those were the concerns that were raised, and in your work, which was diligent and thorough, you addressed them by taking them out of the bill. In fact, I do not know of any group that came forward to you with an objectively reasonable scenario and a fact pattern that you didn't say, I will write that out of the bill.
Yeah.
So distilled down, once you get past all those exceptions, all the bill says, the amendment at this point says, is that someone between the age of 18 and 20, totally unsupervised, can't go and purchase a high-powered rifle.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, do you remember how old you were when you got your first rifle?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
Do you remember how old you were when you got a rifle first time?
I remember shooting a rifle sometime in my late teens.
Well, I've seen you shoot before, and it's pretty impressive, by the way.
I was much older
probably,
than that.
I think I was 12 years old, 14 years old, and I got a rifle. And it was a 22, single-shot 22. And then later on, I got a deer rifle, which was a Remington. It had 5 shots in it, but it was a bolt-action deer rifle like all people use. Is there anything in this bill that would keep a teenager from being, or an 18-year-old, for example, from being able to buy any of those types of rifles?
No, in fact, you specifically accepted them from the provisions of the bill, and that's exactly what's mirrored in the amendment that's before the body.
So the rifle that nearly everybody got when they were a teenager, or the first rifle they bought, is not affected by this bill at all.
No, not at all.
I think you got a great amendment.